Hello, I'm Joanne Williams. Welcome to a new season of Black Nouveau in our new home. This is our monthly magazine for October. The Stars and Stripes Honor Flight took its first plane of Vietnam veterans to the nation's capital for a tour recently. We'll share the emotional experience with two Milwaukeeans. James Causey talks with activist Markasa Chambers about the Black Women's Empowerment March, and we'll update you on a new Poor People's Campaign. You know, much of the cultural buzz this month has been about the 9th annual Milwaukee Film Festival.
I'm in love.
Country. We had.
These are some of the films that were screened during the first week of the 9th annual Milwaukee Film Festival. As the festival moves into its second week, there's some gems yet to be seen. We're joined by Geraud Blanks, co-programmer of the Black Lens 4 series of the festival. Welcome.
Thank you.
Tell me the ones that you are really looking forward to this year.
There's a film called Destin, starring Corey Hardrick. Some people might remember him. He had a pretty significant role in the Tupac biopic against All Eyes on Me. So he's in that. That is a film, the best way I can describe it is, it tells the story of a young man named Rashid, but it tells it from two sort of parallel angles. One is of a drug dealer, right, who is trying to figure out, does he want to be a drug kingpin, or does he want to take care of some responsibilities that he has recently found out that he has? The other takes it from the point of view of an architect who is rising up in the company until he finds out about an incident that really makes him sort of rethink his career choice. Now, what's interesting about Destin is the idea is one mistake can change your life, right? Can point you in one direction or the other. So you get to see these kind of back and forth versions of Rashid. And one is him as a drug dealer, the other is him as an architect, and then they collide at the end. And we've been really pushing this to a lot of youth groups to say this is, we think, a really good film, a representation of the choices that a lot of young people growing up in urban communities have to make.
Are you going to have any kind of talkbacks and discussions after this film?
So both the director, and I hope I'm saying his name right, is Wasim Basir, and Corey Hardrick will be in for 2 screenings. We're having a youth screening on Tuesday, October 10th at 4 p.m. at the Oriental, and I think a couple of the screenings also have talkbacks.
There's another film that's fascinating. It's Acorn and the Firestorm.
So Acorn, people may or may not remember this organization. It's one of the largest anti-poverty organizations in American history. And it became a household name during, I believe it was the 2008 presidential elections between Barack Obama and John McCain. And there was this expose done. A young white man and a young white woman posed as a pimp and a prostitute and went to one of the Acorn offices and videotaped an interaction. And that interaction, that videotape, created a firestorm, hence the name Acorn and the Firestorm. What's interesting about this documentary, and it's directed, co-directed by Sam Pollard, excuse me, another fabulous director who will be in town for the festival. They go behind the scenes and they talk to some of the people. They actually talk to some of the Acorn employees who were caught on that video to get their side of the story. And believe me, if you thought you knew what happened, this thing gives you a whole new view on the events that happened and on the controversy that came after it. So it's a really, really interesting film. Blood is at the Doorstep follows the Hamilton family, and it follows a lot of the activism around the killing or shooting of Dante Hamilton.
Officers behind bars. I need to have a community where police and citizens can trust each other. When will we stand up? This community is at risk always. And it's not because men and women in blue risk their lives protecting us. Are you more likely to support them or no? We demand justice or else.
And not only what his family did to bring attention to the incident, but also the way in which Milwaukee became sort of this center of this ongoing activism and this ongoing fight, I think, to bring attention to police-involved shootings of unarmed black men. The diversity in our audience is really, you think, hey, I'm doing this program that features African-American filmmakers, right? This is really for black folks. No, the age range is from high school kids to men and women in their 60s and 70s, black, white, Latino, Native American. Everybody comes out to see these films, and it's sort of inspiring because we love stories about ourselves. We want to see really impactful, inspiring stories, but other people want to see them too. A great story is a great story. It doesn't matter who directs it, right? So one of the things I love about Black Lens is, yes, the focus is on black directors and the focus is on the black community, but it's relevant to everybody.
And there's more information about the 9th Annual Milwaukee Film Festival on the Milwaukee PBS website, milwaukeepbs.org.
On September 30th, black women marched for social justice in Washington, D.C. and right here in Milwaukee. Joining us now is Markasa Tucker from UBlack to discuss the march and a number of other important social issues. Thanks for joining us.
Indeed, thanks for having me.
So, who makes up UBlack and what's your mission?
Absolutely. So we are a group of black women, trans, and queer folks who came together after Savelle Smith was shot and killed by a former Milwaukee police officer. We noticed there was a gap in the community for organizing some of the energy after Savelle was shot and killed, and so we're looking for this opportunity to really begin to build with people in our community around some of the issues that we're dealing with here in Milwaukee.
Now, the march inspired over 10,000 letters to be written to black leaders across the nation. Mm-hmm. Has UBlack reached out to black leaders locally to get them involved?
Absolutely. For the march, we reached out to our senators. We also reached out to local common council members as well, and we know some of them joined us, so that was an excellent opportunity to get them involved.
What has their response been?
So we know that we did it in Malele Cogs's district. She opened it up to us to have the space, so we were really excited to have her on board. She's also interested in wanting to build with the women and saw the importance of allowing us to utilize the space in her district to begin to build with women here in Milwaukee.
Was there a historical significance to the September 30th date?
Absolutely. Back in 1919 in Elaine, Arkansas, there was a massacre after black soldiers came back from World War I, and they were lynched, they were mobbed, and we are mourning with them still after September 30th.
Now the march is over, so the question comes up, what are the next steps?
Absolutely.
What are you going to focus on?
So we have been keeping a list of emails of the women who have been involved with us since the beginning in regards to our planning process. And so we asked women, if you want to still be a part of this process, can we keep you on our email list? Would you like to join UBlack, or would you like to maybe start a separate table where we can start working on some of these issues? So while we were planning, we noticed that some of the things that continued to come up were things around black families, infant mortality, and sex trafficking. So we're going to sit down, come up with an agenda of items that we want to really engage on, and then start to work around those things.
Now, sex trafficking is a huge issue here. How do you plan to address that?
So we're working with Dana World Patterson, who is also involved in the planning of the march. And so we want to be able to support some of the organizations and the people who have already been doing really resilient work. So we'll probably sit down with people like her and Martha Love and others to find ways that we can begin to really get the word out there and find out ways that we can continue to push the work.
Now, talking about moving forward, there was a Department of Justice report that came out on the Milwaukee Police Department. It wasn't too encouraging. It was a number of issues there. You've been looking at that, and what is your assessment?
Well, to me, the report was simply just amplifying what has already been said here in Milwaukee in regards to a lot of the police practices. So it wasn't a surprise, and we saw it all sitting on paper. And we think that when like the Milwaukee Fire Police Department and others saw it, it kind of was alarming because now it's on paper. So now people need to really be held accountable for it. So we're happy that it was leaked, and we're excited to have it on paper so that we can now begin to hold the Milwaukee Police Department and the Fire and Police Commission accountable for what needs to happen and what needs to change. But the community needs to be at the center of how that's going to be moving forward.
Now, that's the key. How do you make sure that they're held accountable? What do you do?
So I think that as we are beginning to dive into what's in this report, we have to kind of break some of this stuff out for people who are not going to go through that 200-page document and highlight some of the things that are causing some of the issues here in Milwaukee, like the stop and frisk, and some of the things that we are constantly hearing about here in Milwaukee. And so we are going to take some time to break down some of those issues. And we're hoping with collaboration of the Fire and Police Commission and also the Common Council to host listening sessions where people can start to share their ideas around what they think needs to be happening in regards to the recommendation, and continue to allow people to know that they have power to push and pressure the Fire and Police Commission, who should be also pressuring the Milwaukee Police Department around changing their practices.
Now, what is the African-American Civil Engagement Roundtable doing?
Yes, so I'm the director of the African-American Roundtable. We are a project of Wisconsin Voices. Wisconsin Voices is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that does civic engagement and voter mobilization and also policy work. And so we have been, this table's been around since about 2012. It's kind of moved from chair to chair, and just this year was our decision to actually hire someone, which was me, to do the work. And so we are coming together as different partners from in Milwaukee, other nonprofits, and mostly the people at the table right now are from different organizations with African Americans leading in some of the community work. And we want to improve the community's living and lives here in Milwaukee.
So do you focus on all of Black Milwaukee, or is it a focus on certain areas of Milwaukee?
Right now we're working in the Metcalf Park area, but we know that we'll be doing work to get turnout to vote for the sheriff's race in 2018, and then we'll also be doing some work around the police accountability as well.
How do you get involved in the politics aspect? What do you do?
Yeah, so we haven't dived really into that just yet, but we know when it comes around to the police accountability and the sheriff's race, we're definitely going to have to get people educated and engaged around those things to help them to see the different policies that they have the power to help shift and change.
Now, tell me quickly, how do people find out more about your organization and also the Roundtable?
Yes, so the Roundtable, it has a Facebook page as well. It's the African American Civic Engagement Roundtable, and also Wisconsin Voices. You can catch us on the web at wisconsinvoices.org.
Fantastic. Hey, thanks for joining us, and this was nice. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
A 21st century church gathering that puts you into the mindset of a 60s gathering. Same song, similar message, though with a new leader rekindling the flame of the Poor People's Campaign. This campaign was launched about 50 years ago by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to give poor people a voice. He was assassinated before he could fully get it off the ground. Now, 50 years later, Reverend William Barber has taken up the mantle, rekindling the flame for poor people.
So we're coming together across all kinds of divides, recognizing that still today systemic racism, poverty, environmental devastation, and the war economy, and the moral narrative of our nation must be challenged and must be changed. The poor must be galvanized. Must be engaged in political power. Kentucky and Kansas and Missouri and West Virginia and Tennessee and North Carolina and South Carolina.
Dr. Barber is organizing throughout the country. The Milwaukee location was St. Gabriel's Church of God in Christ. The church's pastor, Lee Shaw, supports the campaign and Dr. Barber.
He laid it on my mind this way. He said that we call ourselves a Christian nation, but yet we don't seem to want to honor the poor. And if you're going to call yourself a Christian and follow the dictates of Christ, then you have to have a concern about the poor, because that seems to be what his entire ministry was about.
They don't remember what was already happening right here in Milwaukee. Am I right about it? And Milwaukee is considered the Selma of the North.
Assistant pastor and head of Pastors United, Gregory Lewis, says no one has been speaking up for the poor recently until now.
You know, every candidate, they always run based on, you know, wanting to do something for the middle class, the upper middle class, the middle class, and even the rich. But nobody is really speaking up and advocating for the poor. And Reverend Dr. William Barber has taken up the mantle, and he's bringing back the emphasis on poor folks and the issues that really affect us as people. And most of the poor folks in America, a lot of them are, you know, people of color. And I think that it's important that somebody has a voice and somebody needs to be heard. So it has to be an organized situation. And that's what he's doing right now all over the country, organizing about 25 states. As a matter of fact, taking about 1,000 people from each state and organizing them in a way that people are prepared to do what needs to be done so voices are heard. And it's going to culminate next year in 2018 with a gathering in Washington, D.C.
Whatever has divided us, we're going to put it aside. Because let me tell you something, and I'm through. The people who have taken power, and not just recently.
Milwaukee campaign organizer Wendell Harris Sr. says Reverend Barber is asking people around the country to get involved and demand adequate funding for working people.
That campaign of Dr. King's was pretty much focused on the South, but we're going to make this thing happen all over this country, so all of our people can take part and see that we all have to be in this together. When we go into our state houses around this country making demands, all too often, the people who come to make demands of our representatives on behalf of those who are less fortunate, we're told to leave. You don't have a right to be here. And when we don't leave, the thing to do is to arrest us, and that's what they do. So that is a sacrifice for a person to say, I'm going to stand my ground. We should be here for our people, for the rights of our people, and if going to jail is the price I have to pay, then some of us we have committed to do just that.
First of all, we want people to stand up for themselves. That's major, and we want people to understand the issues. That's major, and we want people to start working together. That's major, but we're asking some folks to take an extra step and make sacrifices to get the word out, to make sure that the initiative is taken serious. And you know, this is really serious business. It really is. And you know, we kind of had a discussion about this. You know, how much do we want to get involved? But we just think if you're doing the right thing, you know, you don't have to worry about, you know, repercussions. Because, you know, as a matter of fact, if you don't stand up for the right thing, you might as well just lay down and just let people walk all over you.
The Vietnamese War further divided a nation that was also in the midst of a civil rights struggle. Almost 3 million United States servicemen and women saw duty in Vietnam between 1955 and the war's end in 1975, and more than 12% of those serving were African American.
I was drafted in '68, and I was assigned to a 701st Mains outfit when I went to Vietnam, and I ended up being in the supply, but it was kind of boring to me. So I ended up being a shotgun rider for all convoys. Well, we load up supplies and wherever we go to Townsend, Like K, Long Bend, Saigon, and you ride shotgun for the driver in case we get hit.
Was that dangerous?
Somewhat. You know, we took the load up once or twice where with the Like K and we couldn't come back down because they had discovered the regular RABMs from North Vietnam, so we couldn't come back down. But other than that, you know, just kind of take it a day as it goes. And did my 2-year service, a year in Vietnam, about 13 months in Vietnam, and then I came back stateside.
Everybody else in my neighborhood was getting drafted, and I said, that's not going to happen to me. I said, I want to be able to choose and make the choice as to where I go and when I go and that kind of thing. So that's when I volunteered.
He enlisted in the Air Force, did his basic training in Texas, and became an aircraft mechanic. Stateside, he learned how to operate the B-47 bomber. When he was transferred to the Philippines, he learned about the C-130 cargo.
They gave me an assignment of a C-130 that I was the crew chief on. I was responsible for all of the maintenance and the upkeep of that plane, and everywhere that plane went, I was on it. In that particular realm, they sent us on a 2-week rotational into Vietnam to go in and run sorties up and down the coast, delivering various things, food and fuel and water and all of that stuff, and going picking up bodies and doing the injured, bringing them back to the processing center in Saigon. So I did that off and on for like 8 months, and the longest I stayed in Vietnam was like 3 weeks.
Both men returned home safely from the war, but they did not receive a hero's welcome.
So when I got out in California, I went to 2 junior colleges there in California, and everywhere I went, there was all these protesters. Everybody was protesting the Vietnam War.
Turn back wasn't a welcome turn back, not like today. There was a war where we killed babies and some time we got spit on. I mean, it wasn't a welcome back. It was like we wasn't welcome back.
But that changed last September. The Stars and Stripes Honor Flight took its first full plane of Vietnam veterans to Washington, D.C. Since 2009, the all-volunteer organization has transported over 5,000 veterans from southeastern Wisconsin to see their national memorials. And now Vietnam veterans are being honored for their service.
The experience is very important. It's important that we let everybody know that their service, whatever their role was, they didn't get to ask for which job they got. They took whatever they got, and whatever role they played is significant, and it's worth being thanked for.
One look and I yelled, timber, watch out for flying.
The day's events started early at Mitchell Airport.
This is it, this is it. I was walking along.
The veterans wear the blue shirts and their guardians are in red.
In the eye, oh flash, bam, alakazam, orange.
Arriving in the D.C. area, they get a rousing welcome. And a police escort. Arlington National Cemetery offers a quiet reminder of the human price of war and the sacrifice many Americans have made. So does the Vietnam Memorial.
They're not forgotten.
No, not now. No. We never forgot them. Nobody cared.
They do now.
Yeah. When I arrived in Vietnam, my first letter home to mom and dad, my first letter back, they told me that he got killed.
James Van Bendigan, my brother-in-law's brother. He was, and actually I had to tell my brother-in-law that his brother was missing in action. His parents were informed that he was missing in action. He was missing from '67. They thought he might be alive all the way to the end in '75. Very, very difficult time for them. And it turned out that he was dead within a few days after he was missing, so very sad.
Halbert Algie, mail call, Algie.
Coming home, the vets received mail call.
Oh, this is great.
All right,
real
you're
great.
welcome.
Drink seriously, guys. This was from Paula. I'm gonna frame this and keep this fantastic.
Wow, that's pretty cool. And finally, the welcome home that they deserve.
Home. Hi,
Next month, we'll bring you an interview with diversity trainer Jane Elliott of the Blue Eyes, Brown Eyes exercise. We'll also update you on how to enroll in the Affordable Care Act. And remember, now you can check us out on the web and on Facebook. We have lots of exclusives there, including our monthly chat with psychologist Dr. Ramel Smith. Each month, he'll provide insight into how we can have better mental health and answer some of your questions. We'll also have links to the subjects we discuss here and a few surprises. You can see new material every week, so check us out at milwaukeepbs.org and like us on Facebook. And that's our program for this month. Next month, you can catch us on Thursday, November 2nd at 9 p.m. For Black Nouveau, I'm Joanne Williams. Thanks for watching.